again, guys, we appreciate your patience. We know you waited around on us, and we really appreciate that. Our topic tonight is policing from the inside out, and Inspector Davis will be sharing with us some of the intricacies of what's been taking place as it relates to the law, how the law operates, etc. So I just want to again welcome Inspector Davis. Inspector Davis, good
Good
evening.
evening. Good evening, everybody.
Listen, it's really a pleasure having you here, and we know that there are a lot of questions, a lot of explanation, and you know how we do on the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. We don't waste people's time with cookie cutter set up questions.
Right.
So we just like just to jump right in and start sharing. Obviously, we've all been talking about Mr. Floyd and the situation that's been occurring, and all of the information that's been flowing out there, and people are protesting, and people are confused about a lot of things. So we want to hear from you.
All right. Well, first things first, before we start talking, I want to just make sure that I tell the audience that the views that I express and the information that I give, I'm representing as an independent person. I'm not representing any agency right now, okay? I am actually talking as a citizen who just happens to have a profession that is in the spotlight, okay? And so I just want to share my inside knowledge and bring those who are not familiar with the profession. I want to bring some things to you all to help educate you all and give you a better outlook on how to navigate through these times that are happening. So I just want to make sure I put that out there. First things first, I also want to just tell a little bit background about how I even got involved in law enforcement. Okay, I graduated from the University of Louisiana Monroe in 2004, earned my Bachelor's of Arts degree in Mass Communications, Marketing, Public Relations. So the original plan when I graduated from college was to actually be involved in radio, television, and film. Okay, that was the goal. And when I moved back home, the first job that I got working for a television station, I ended up hating it and I quit. And so I needed a job because I'm fresh out of college, student loans about to kick back in. And I also am about to move out my parents' house and get an apartment and do the whole independent thing. So I have a cousin of mine who works for the organization that I retired from, the agency that I retired from, Caddo Sheriff's Office. And he told me to apply. And I, like a lot of young people, young millennials, did not look at law enforcement as a career that I wanted to pursue. So I erred on the side of caution when I was applying to join and be a part of the sheriff's office. And so the first 2 years that I worked for the sheriff's office, I was involved in administrative positions and clerical work. And then I went through the training academy, which lasted 4 months. Okay. And then after that, my first assignment was in corrections. From corrections, I went into reentry. From reentry, I went to Criminal Investigative Detectives Division, and I worked for the remaining of my career as both a dare instructor as well as a juvenile detective. I was also involved in task force and as well as other ventures that I did. And then after I decided to retire from the sheriff's office, that's when I went and spent a couple of months teaching at the college level, which I still do. I'm also an adjunct professor for 2 local colleges. And so after teaching for a couple of months, I was asked to come and interview for the investigative position for our local district attorney's office. And so that's been my journey in law enforcement. I've seen things from a actual police side, and then now I'm seeing it from the next level side of being involved with a district attorney's office. So, we look at the Ahmaud Arbery situation as well as George Floyd's situation. We're looking at 2 different elements of areas that I'm extremely familiar with. And so everything that I'm going to be talking about tonight, when we're talking about policing from the inside out, is going to talk about what is not really seen in the media, or what people are not exactly knowing about these situations. The biggest thing that is the talk right now is basically police reform. We've heard a lot of talk about defunding the police. And first thing I want to start by talk to my audience about is about the history of police reform. This is not brand new. In fact, the police reform, okay, like defunding the police, is really a new chapter in a continuation of issues that's been going on for a long time behind the scenes with how police are to operate in their communities. All right. And so first, I'm just going to take everybody through a brief history lesson and talk to you about some key people that have been sounding the alarm for a long time that, hey, the job of police as it relates to society is it needs to evolve to this level and that level. And so if you want to talk about reform, police reform actually goes back to the 1800s. Okay, the father of modern day policing, Sir Robert Peel, if you were to research him, he is a big part of the foundation of how our American law enforcement system was actually set up, because everything that we have as far as our American police law enforcement system came straight from England. Okay, that's where we get our cues from. So everything, even our penal system, how we structure, all that is from England. All right. And so Sir Robert Peel is considered the the founding father of modern day policing. And Sir Robert Peel had an interesting outtake that aligned with the whole entire concept. And his title was, he was Home Secretary of England. Okay, and it was a big title. He's also created the London Metropolitan Police. When you think of the Bobbies and all that, those are all named in his honor. Okay, and so for Sir Robert Peel, and I want to talk about what his focus was. He believed that policing should be to prevent crime before it occurred, rather than detecting it. Okay, that's the approach he did. One of the main things that he is known for is the 7 principles of policing as it relates to earning credibility with the citizens. So even back then in the 1800s, when the foundation for American policing was being started, the main goal was credibility with the citizens. What we see right now with the defunding and the call for defunding the police is because credibility has been lost to the citizens, and citizens are in the street and they're protesting and they're mad because credibility has been shot. Okay. And so back in the 1800s, when police reform was actually getting started, you had Sir Robert Peel, the father, actually saying, look, everything that you do is about credibility to the citizens. So it's always been about that. Okay. And so that's the first thing. His 7 principles, when you read them, they are very well organized. But one of the most important principles that he talks about, and I want to make sure that I read it correctly in its content, is that to seek and preserve public favor, not by pandering to public opinion, but by constantly demonstrating absolute impartial service to law in complete independence of policy and without regard to the justice or injustice of the substance of individual laws, by ready offering of individual service and friendship to all members of the public without regard to their wealth or social standing, by ready exercise of courtesy and friendly good humor, and by ready offering of individual sacrifice in protecting and preserving life. So that was one of his principles. Okay, the protecting and the was a part of the principles. Now, this is something that, like I said, it's important because that is one of the main issues that when we look at the unarmed shootings and killings of African-American men and women at the hands of police officers, public servants. That's what I'm going to say, public servants. I'm not going to even say police officers, because at the core, if you are there, firefighters, police officers, all of us are in a group. We're public servants. So at the core, what we do is always about protecting and preserving life. And so this is what strikes the core of why people are so angry, because again and again and again, we have seen a continuous disregard for protecting and preserving life. But that's being in our principles, all right? That's what we are supposed to be doing, because the Father who laid the foundation for which our whole entire police system said that's part of it, okay? So we, like I said, that's the first level of reform that Sir Robert Peel did. Was he was instrumental in laying the foundation of how police are supposed to be in society. So when we crossed over to the pond and America starts to build our police system, we're picking different things, but somehow in the process, his principles got lost. Okay,
most assuredly.
So what happens is you have different regions of the United States, and the police develops, okay? And police really is like a generic term, because when I start to break down how it's so many different divisions, but we just use police as a generic term. But when the police were forming in the United States, everybody was not on the same page. You had in the major cities that were established, you had corruption, a lot of political influence that was heading over these police departments. It was a known fact that, hey, if you got money, you can pretty much buy your way out of any crime that you do. Going on in the major cities in America was the corruption, the political influence. Then in the South, you had the slave patrols. Okay, the police of the South, all the Southern Confederate slave states, they were, slave patrol. That's the foundation they were founding up. Then out West, you had the Wild Wild West, the development of all these towns. And so they were dealing with lawlessness and all that different stuff. So the police in this country was already going in different directions. So that's right. How easy his principles got lost in the process. Because everybody was going in their own different direction. So boom, we fast forward. Police reform starts becoming popular again. Citizens were getting outraged. They were getting tired of the corruption. They were getting tired of a lot of issues that were going on with different police departments. And so we enter into the 1900s. And police reform starts to become popular again. And so we have the second wave of police reform is about getting the politics out of police. Okay, the first level police reform that was from the inside was about establishing what is the purpose of the police supposed to be, which got lost. Then the second wave of the police reform was about getting the politics out of it, making sure that citizens are getting served. And so then we enter into August Vollmer. I might say his last name wrong. Sometimes I will butcher a name or two, okay? But you can look him up. He was the first chief of police for Berkeley, okay? Berkeley, California, all right? And so August Vollmer was very progressive. And he is the one that actually started introducing the importance of being public servants. On top of a lot of other things he did, he pushed, his department was one of the first ones in the nation to push for college-educated police officers, because there have been plenty of studies that have done over the years that have talked about how use of force tends to be lower. Use of force complaints tends to be lower among college-educated police officers versus those who have just high school diplomas. He was back in 1910, around 1910 and so forth. He was one of those who started that whole entire push for education and law enforcement. One of the things he discovered was that there wasn't a lot of literature out there about how to police. So he was also someone that pushed for literature on policing to be established. He also looked at psychological evals, lie detectors for police officers, because he saw that there's an importance to weed out the ones who are unfit to protect and serve. He also was among the first in the nation to employ African-American law enforcement officers as well too. And so he fought very hard from his position to try to establish the next level of police reform. And that is to get the politics out of it and get the message of we are public servants. But we go again. As soon as he left this earth, it seemed like it all just went away. So fast forward, we got the 1960s show up. Okay. And what happened in the 1960s? Civil rights movement. Whole lot of unrest in this country. And a very controversial president, President Lyndon B. Johnson, had to put together a commission. And this commission was designed to tackle how to police in society, okay, in a change of society. His commission that he put together, and I want to make sure your audience is familiar with this, it was called the President's Commission on Law Enforcement and Administration of Justice, all right? He had 18 months. He had this commission in place. Now, we got the civil rights movement in full force when this commission is started. And this commission goal was to go in and to figure out all the imbalances and all the things that were going on in law enforcement departments throughout this country that was stopping them from being able to serve all communities, especially communities of color. Okay. Now everybody know Lyndon B. Johnson was a very controversial president. He really was. And his tongue was okay. But that was one of the things. He had his commission in place for 18 months, which had about 63 staffers in all. And one of the things that came out of this commission was the importance of establishing the field training programs in all law enforcement, because he said that all law enforcement agencies need to get on the same page with how they are training. So, because there was a disproportionate balance between your rural as well as your inner city style law enforcement agency, it was an imbalance in how they were trained, and so that training led to what you see with all those incidents that happened during the civil rights movement. There was it training. They did not training how to handle different communities, you know. So in the end, you have the introduction of the field training program, which now tacks on to law enforcement training a program where after you graduate from a training academy, you now have to go a couple more months being screened by the department through somebody that's called a field training officer, and they've got to take a look at you. They've got to figure out, they're the ones who are going to be responsible for acclimating you into the culture of the agency, seeing if you are even fit to do this work. And if you're not, you got to go. Okay, so it was out of Lyndon B. Johnson Commission that we started to see the expansion of training to deal with crime in society. All right. And he actually, the document that was released from his commission is entitled The Challenge of Crime in a Free Society. Okay. And it's a good read. Very, very good read. And so you see the progressing, but you know, the third wave of reform is starting to happen, trying to train everybody to start getting on the same page with how you are in the community. So the third wave is training. Lo and behold, we get law and order president, we get all this other stuff. So by the time we fast forward to going into the 21st century, everything that was even from this commission has all but spun out of control. You have hits and bits here and there, but it was not, it veered off course automatically. So now we fast forward to 2014, and we have the trifecta of police killing unarmed Black men and children, because we have first Eric Gardner happens in New York City. Then we have Mike Brown that happens in Ferguson. And then we have Tamir Rice in Cleveland, Ohio. And so here comes President Barack Obama, and he creates a commission to tackle this issue. And his commission was called the White House Task Force on 21st Century Policing. Now, they followed a lot of the footsteps of Lyndon Baines Johnson's commission, and they actually traveled around the country, had listening sessions. They did a lot of research. Their panel, the commission, President Barack Obama's commission, was made up of a lot of different representation. Okay, it wasn't strictly law enforcement. It was a little bit of everybody that was involved with his commission. And in the end, they produced a document that went out to all law enforcement agencies, all law enforcement support groups, also the police unions, everybody, the citizens, everybody had access to get this if they want to. And he released it was called the 21st Century Final Policing Report. In this report, you actually have 156 recommendations that was issued for how police departments throughout the country can restore trust between them and the communities they serve. 156 recommendations.
Wow.
156. And 87 of those recommendations were geared towards local. So if anybody runs around talking about we don't know what to do or how to do, you had a playbook back in 2014. You really did. You got a playbook, because if you look at, when you study his document, the document that his commission, President Barack Obama's team put out, they actually have up under each recommendation action items, which goes into more detail about how you can implement and everything like that. So you have it there. These 3 incidents happen. Boom, we're back at square one. Here comes another document to try to get police departments back on track. All right. So we're entering now what is the 4th reform effort, to handle. All right. And it's about restoring trust, being able to restore trust. Okay. So we're laying the foundation. That's the first level of reform. The second one is getting the politics out. The third one is training. Now the 4th one is restoring trust. And now we're here today because as soon as President Barack Obama left the White House, what do you think happened to it?
Would you like me to take a guess?
What do you think happened to it? I mean, I'm not. Literally, what happened to it. Go try to find it on the White House website. You're not going to find it there. You can Google the document. You can. And actually, when Barack Obama spoke about, I guess, 2 weeks ago, I think it's been about 2 weeks or ago,
right.
News be happening so fast now. You don't know if it's been a week, 2 weeks anymore. And it got brought back up again. This time the mayors and everybody is getting hold of it. But it came back. This document came back. And so it's not like we haven't been, when you talk about police reform, we have been hitting this issue of how the police are supposed to function in society for a minute. And the thing is now it's just finally going to, it just done turned over to the citizens. Ain't nothing else can be done, other than what are the citizens wanting to happen now? And so this is where we are at. This might be the final chapter in this continuing saga of how is the police supposed to be functioning in our society?
Wow.
So that's a little history for
as you share that, Inspector Davis, it sounds to me like, unfortunately, anything else with the corruption and the bullying and many people getting into law enforcement to be able to, quote, bully free, because, and the reason I say it sounds to me that way is because obviously I'm definitely pro-union, but obviously when you start protecting people, when you know they're guilty of doing things, and then you try to switch the narrative, that is very hard for people to swallow. Number one. And number two, I need to go on record to say as well, is that this show is definitely about what you're talking about, and I'm so happy that you and I collaborated. And quite honestly, our audience needs to know that you were excited and really anxious to talk about this topic because you want to educate us. And I'm so happy that that's happening because I have, and I've said to anybody that will listen, I have many family members whom I love dearly. I have many friends that I consider, my wife and I consider you one, who happen to be in law enforcement. I left that part out. Many family members who are in law enforcement whom I love dearly. And we have many friends, and obviously, as I said, my wife and I consider you one that are in law enforcement. And I'm definitely not anti-law enforcement, which brings about my next question, probably in the form of a statement. It's very disturbing when you shine a light on those individuals that need to be dismissed, and then the narrative tries to get spun as if you are anti-police.
Right.
And just my opinion as a regular citizen, as a person that have lots of family members whom I love dearly that are in law enforcement and friends that are in law enforcement, that is never cleared up. People talk around, people being the news media, when many times I not blame, but I wonder why when the quote police unquote is talking, or when the quote John Q. Citizen unquote is talking, no one ever makes that point. Is that no one is anti-police. We are simply talking about the murderers that are allowed to hide under cover of the badge and the color of the blue, the rapists that are allowed to hide under the cover of the badge and the color of the blue, the misogynists that are allowed to hide under the badge and the color of the blue and that kind of thing. However, those individuals have the audacity to try to arrest you and to try to incarcerate you and, God forbid, to kill you. Those are points that no one ever, that I've never heard. Let me put it this way. It's been in my experience. I've never heard people actually voice that in opposition of individuals that's bashing the police. And I'm talking, I don't care who it is. He's, oh, the police. No. It's not the police. And you made a very great point of that. It's those individuals that need to be 86th, need to be removed. So it's like, allow me to say, and then I want you to share more with us. I say to people all the time, as a former head coach, I've been very blessed to have had a lot of success. Won state championships, played on national championships, and college the whole nine. However, when I started getting my butt kicked, they didn't care about any of that. We understand there's a rule in sports. Either you win or you don't. And people want your head. They're not trying to destroy you, but they want someone else in that position that they feel can get them to where they're going. And that's what I say about policing, is that but the word policing is simply the fact that no one is turning against the police department or anything of that nature. But, when there's a murderer hiding among the ranks, he needs to go. When there's a rapist hiding among the ranks, they need to go. When there are misogynists hiding among the ranks, they need to go, et cetera, et cetera. But the sad part of it is that we have this mindset of rallying around one of our own. And the last thing I'll say about that, even when working with kids, and I do violence intervention and prevention all of my life, and some of my kids in the MLK area will tell you, just as my kids in the Los Angeles area will tell you, in Houston when I'm working with them, it's very simple. All of you guys are destroying and bullying people and stuff like that, I have no use for you. Because you are the ones that are destroying your neighborhoods, you're destroying people, you're selling them drugs, etc. It is not me passing judgment against you. These are things that you're doing. So, go ahead.
And it's one of the things when I teach intro to criminal justice and other courses, one of the first things that I oftentimes talk to my students about, because I refer to them as your criminal justice advocates. Okay, that's what you're going to be. I don't care what you're going into, which part of it you're going into. This is a vast, wide open field. You are a criminal justice advocate. And you need to remember, especially if you're going to go into the uniform division of it, you define that badge. The badge does not need to define you. And what we have, and this is just an observation from 15 years of being in the in this career field, is there are two type of officers that have emerged, okay, among the ranks. Depending on what department you're in, you're going to have more one versus the other. The first type of officer you have is the professional cop or the professional officer. This is the one that understands how to put the job, their duties, everything surrounding it into perspective. They know it's a time and a place to be this way, and they know it's a time and a place to be that way. They know how to detach themselves from the work. They know how to detach themselves from the world, and they know how to go back into the world and then and live among people and be able to do what they need to do. I think one of the biggest examples of a professional cop is Officer Tommy Norman. He's one of the, I follow him a lot and I look at him a lot, because you talk about a walking example of community oriented policing. He is it. Okay, but he's a professional cop. He knows how to detach himself from that uniform and go back into the world. And he understands that. Then you have the other type of cop, which and no disrespect to anybody that's in a fraternity or a sorority. Okay, I'm not saying this in any negative way, but you have the frat mind fraternity cop. Okay, and I'm talking about the stereotype of frat mind. The whole entire, their world, somehow something takes place and their world becomes that whole entire uniform. And what tends to happen is they cannot detach themselves even when they go off the clock. They're still in that world. And that's what you saw when you saw Botham Jean's situation, Amber Geiger. Okay, when she was heading to her so-called apartment that she mixed up, people keep forgetting she was on the phone texting her lover. So I was like, okay, you were on the clock doing this behavior. Then you're off the clock, still in this world, because you got this man that you fooling with that is from that world. Everything becomes that world. That uniform becomes their new world. This is where you hear the slogan "Blue Lives Matter" start to come from. That's a fraternity-minded cop, because you're not a blue life. I only got asked that one time, by a lady. I didn't mean to be rude to her, but she was like, she was trying to, I guess, talk to me and trying to say, I support you. And then because she saw me in my sheriff uniform and everything like that. And she said, and I believe that Blue Lives Matter. And I said, ma'am, don't say that to me. And she was taken back by it, but I had to explain it to her. I said, ma'am, I don't take a shower in this uniform. And she was like, what do you mean by that? I was like, I don't take a shower in this uniform. Every night, when I get ready to take a shower, this uniform comes off. I throw it in dirty clothes, I wash it, I put it back on. But you know what's still on when I get in the shower? You know what's still on me when I get out in the shower? My skin. I was like, I chose this profession. I chose this profession knowing it's a possibility that I could go 10-8 and not go 10-7. I knew that. I kept knowing that. Every day I put that uniform on, I committed myself that, okay, I know this might be the day. Some of my colleagues, yes, they have died in the uniform, but I cannot elevate a chosen profession to the level of something that I had no control over. Okay, I didn't choose to be Black. I am Black. That's just it. And I was like, and when I leave this world, guess what's coming with me? This skin, And I had to break it down for her. I was like, to go into that territory of now trying to do that like that, that's that fraternity-minded cop. And the problem becomes with fraternity-minded cops. That's where you start to see the corruption, because it's the circle the wagon. We're all fighting in this together. And even if they know that they have someone that is corrupt, they will figure out a way to twist their mind that, you know what, we shouldn't, and stuff. Okay, because I was blown back that there were people literally trying to downplay the knee on the neck, knowing that we all in training academy. Okay, this is the training academy. You can look it up. All right, there we all were taught in the academy. We have this beautiful little color chart of the human body that has red zone, green zone, yellow zone. Okay, these are the parts of the body that if we inflict trauma to it, whether it be through using MEB, if we spray, if we use any type of use of force, punch, whatever, there are certain parts of the body that is zoned off, that if we hit it, the level that the trauma might induce a serious injury, better yet, death, is ranked. Okay. Every person, even the village idiot of the academy, know that the neck area is the red zone. It's the no. You better not go near the neck. And the fact that there were people trying to downplay the fact this man put his knee on this man's neck for 8 minutes. Now I can see I might have even gave just a slight, if it was like slipped on his knee, slipped on his neck, and then he corrected himself. Maybe even then I'd be like, nah, you've been at this long enough to know how to do a proper handcuffing technique. Don't go there. But 8 minutes, you kept your knee just like that for 8 minutes. No. The fact that there were officers who are still trying to twist that, I was like, there goes that fraternity-minded cop. A professional cop comes out and tells you, our training says, no, we don't do something like that. He was cuffed, put him in that car. You got a cage. If he wanted to kick the cage, if he was being combative, as soon as he cuffed, you can put him in the car. He can have he could have had all the fits he wants to or whatever and stuff. The car is, our patrol units are designed to deal with that. You kept that man on the ground, obstructing his airway, obstructing his ability to move. You didn't render aid. You threw your whole entire training out the window. Wow. You are a frat-minded cop. It's one big party for you in your mind. And you want to see how many people you can pledge in and do things to and all that. But that professional cop, know better. And so we're dealing with these departments now that are having the problem. It's because they have allowed way too many frat-minded cops in and not enough professional-minded cops to come through. And so this is where you're seeing the problematic areas at. The agencies whose cultures have allowed that to thrive in greater numbers.
Wow, that's. And I know I've kept you longer than I said I would. But this is such an interesting conversation, and thumbs are going up all over the place, and hearts are going up all over the place. And, as you share that, please allow me, and I'll be brief. That in and of itself was excellent analogy, because even as an athlete, I've often said that I don't know why people are so shocked when they see you on the football field and you are a quote monster unquote. Then they see you walk in the street and you're a regular person, like, wow. I didn't know you were this nice. That's a game. I'm supposed game playing within the rules, mind you. But I don't need to be aggressive when I take my helmet off and take my uniform off. So it was great to hear you share that, because people again try to twist that and say, oh, they anti-cop, they anti-this, and they anti-that. And that is where the whole process, I have one question. Again, I guess an important statement. I often ask, when did the officers become the judge? When they can just murder people, shoot people? And I guess it's a twofold question. The more we pay attention, if people be honest, you big and bad when somebody doesn't have a weapon. And then you have a to murder them when they're under complete control of you and your officers. So that was the trouble. And please allow me to say, Inspector Davis, that was the main and has been the main trouble over the years when I work with gang members and kids that get in trouble. They would throw that up in your face in a minute. They'd throw it in your face in a minute. Well, that's what police do. They have 5 or 6 people on you, hold you down, and you ain't even fighting back. You see, that kind of thing. So it's sad when, again, for the family members that I love, for the friends that I love, when you do not want to, but when you defend them, and then you have these fraternity, a great way to put it, you have these fraternity minded cops who damage and destroy the professional cop in the minds of the people. And that's a very, very devastating thing to happen. And that's why I went to the gang member situation, is that when they try to blend in and pretend that, well, people don't like me around, why would they want you around with the kind of activity and things that you inflict? So listen, you've done an excellent, 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 excellent job of explaining this. And again, please let me express that I'm so happy that you came on to share this. Anything else you'd like to share before we close this segment? Because we could talk about this until next week and still not be done.
Not be done. I just want to say it to everybody in the audience, just always remember to, as we move forward and we talk about reforming the police and everything in your communities, pay attention to your legislation, your leadership, those who are in those positions to make those changes. Stay on them. To look deep and look into different things, and also for you have law enforcement officers who can give you knowledge and insight on what to do. Make sure you include them. The ones that that will be assistance, that will lay it out there. Make sure you include them as you try to reimagine what your police department and your community can do for you. Include the ones in there who have showed that they can sit down at the table and say, all right, you're right about this, but let me show you this is how this is done, or this is why this is done. So if you're going to change this is what you need to focus on trying to actually ask for in the change. That's going to be very important to do, because if not, what you're going to see and what you're already starting to see is they're going to go into, unfortunately, a hive mindset if we're not careful, where it's going to be us against them, and you don't need that. It's time to and I'm gonna get biblical for a second. Let the wheat and the tare done grew up together. Now it's time to separate them. Okay, so what you need to do is the ones that you're gonna identify as the wheat, get them on your side and get them with you and get them working with you to make sure that the tare gets out the door. And so you can reimagine what your law enforcement does for you, and because they work for you. I mean, I do. My salary is paid through the taxpayers. So, I mean, if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and they get, hey, it is what it is. If you want to be a public servant, you knew what this job was when you signed up for it. Don't act brand new. Don't act brand new.
Well, listen, this has been great. We're going to have to get together to do this again. Would you like to leave an contact information if some of our guests?
Yeah. Okay. Well, my email that I can be reached at is my first name, LATIENDA.Davis@gmail.com. That's how you can. And then, of course, I am on Facebook. So you can shoot me a messenger and so forth, and I can message you back and everything like that. But if there's follow-up questions or anything like that, I'll do my best to answer them. I got 15 years of knowledge, so that's what I'm gonna stick with is that level of knowledge. So I am one of those who, anything that I can do to make sure that the bridge between our citizens and us is repaired and restored, I'm there to do it, because we don't exist without our citizens' support, and there needs to be some work done this, so.
Wow, absolutely. So listen, thank you so very much, Inspector Davis. This has been delightful. And let me share with our guests is that we are so happy that you're here, and the numbers are phenomenal. I need to let Officer Davis know that, Inspector, before she get off of the line. I'll just say off the line. And we want to invite our guests back at 7 p.m. if they're not too tired. We have a Father's Day special with former NFL running back Roland Harper, who's from he attended the same high school as Inspector Davis. And we also have Mr. Byron Lyons, who prepped at Grambling High School, who's a professional in his own right. And we have Mr. Reg Kopikas, who is from Toronto, Canada. They'll all be with us here at 7 p.m. We'll be talking about dads. As a matter of fact, our topic is fathers. That's what we do. So if you're so inclined, please come back at 7 p.m. and join us again. This has been the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. I'm your host, Melvin Casey Lars, and we are so happy that you were here, and we bid you all good evening.
Bye. Bye-bye.